Lanny Wadkins won 21 times on the PGA Tour. He won the 1977 PGA Championship. He won the 1979 Players Championship. He was the 1970 United States Amateur Champion. Lanny Wadkins was a member of the United States Ryder Cup team 8 times. He still has one of the best records on either side overall. He was the 1995 United States Ryder Cup captain. He played on the PGA Tour, get this, guys, 692 PGA Tour events. And in that time, he had 21 runner-up finishes go along with those 21 wins. Think about that for a second. And here's an interesting fact to tell you just how great a player Lanny Wadkins was during the height of his prowess. From 1972 to 1992, right? He finished in the top 10 131 times in 533 starts. If you're doing the math at home, that is 25%. A top 10 at least every fourth start for 2 decades. And this was during a time period. Think about the time I just defined for you from 1972. It's a time that I like to refer to as when giants roamed. Lanny Wadkins now is a voice that you're familiar with his work broadcasting the game of golf, and his opinions are still important to the world of golf as well, and certainly here on the Fairways of Life show. Always a pleasure to welcome Lanny Wadkins into the show. Lanny, what is going on, my man? How you doing?
Not much. I'm worried about the way I look, Matt. And, after you're criticizing all the clothes, it's a little early, so I didn't exactly dress to the nines this morning.
I was saying that, and I saw you in the preview, and I saw your eyebrows raised like, oh, no, I've got one of those sweaters on.
Do I look like a ship going sideways or something? I don't know.
It all looks good. It all looks good. This week, the Genesis at Riviera, just before you hooked up with us, Lanny, I was kind of going through some of the history of Riviera, and it's so stout, not only with the big events. You won there multiple times. What is it about the golf course that seemingly every generation of professional golfers go, yeah, it's a gem and I love playing it?
Yeah, I think it's one of the absolute best courses, if not the best, that we play on the PGA Tour year in, year out. It's just a supreme test of everything you do in golf. For starters, the greens are very, very small. You're putting on Poana, so it's a little on the tricky side. I cannot get over how well that course sets up from the tee. You stand on the tee, it tells you what to do, where to hit it. And if you can work your driver and create shots and put it in the fairway in the proper place to attack these greens, you can shoot some numbers. It will yield low scores. But if you don't, it will eat your lunch. It's just a true test of golf. Plus, it's just a beautiful place to play.
Ben Hogan at number 10 used to hit a 4-iron and leave himself about 125 yards and go for the pin from there. What was your philosophy on 10?
Well, we didn't hit it as far as they do today. I mean, they're driving the green with 3-woods drivers easy, a lot of 3-woods going at that green. We didn't hit it that far. For me, it was a perfect 4-wood at the left edge of the bunker that goes through the fairway over the cross bunkers in the fairway. So I had about a 40-yard area to hit that 4-wood in. If I hit it in the right place, pretty much did with 4-wood, I would have somewhere around 75 to 85 yards to the hole, and it was a perfect 56-degree sandwich for me to get close. I usually play that hole well on the par, usually 2 or 3 under every week. I was a pretty good wedge player, and if you put it in the left side of the fairway with wedge straight down the gut of that green, you should be able to take advantage of it.
Is there a particular type of player that's favored at Riviera? Is it for somebody that has control over their irons coming into those greens?
Well, you've got to be a good iron player, but it starts with putting it in the fairway. If you don't have it in the fairway and you're trying to play that Kikuyu rough to small greens, you're not going to have success. You can't attack the flags. The greens are small, which also means that once they start tucking the flags in the nooks and crannies around the edges, they're very, very small. And it also means getting up from short-sided is really, really difficult at Riviera, particularly when you're trying to pitch through the Kikuyu. If you can land it on the green, it's one thing, you're okay. But when you've got to start bouncing it in there Kikuyu doesn't bounce, and it sure doesn't bounce very consistently. So you've got to have a game plan going in when you're missing greens.
It was at the 1950 U.S. Open at Marriott, of course. Ben Hogan coming back from a near-fatal car accident. And Ben Hogan used a 1-iron on his 36th hole of the day coming into 18. He had to because his legs at that point, from the severity of his injuries, were basically dead. The famed high piskin photo of Ben Hogan hitting his 1-iron at 18 is one of the most classic photos ever taken. Now, you might be surprised, and you go, a lot of people say, oh, they didn't hit as far back then, et cetera, et cetera. He hit the 1-iron, as I mentioned, because he had to hit the 1-iron. The next day, from the same spot, he hit a 4-iron. Well, he was fresh. He had got a good night's sleep. Plus, he didn't have the 1-iron. The 1-iron that he used on that day was stolen that night along with the shoes that he was wearing, and it disappeared for over 3 decades. My guest, Lanny Wadkins, was part of getting it back to Mr. Hogan in 2013. I had the honor of taking that 1-iron back to the actual spot where Ben Hogan hit it, and it was the first time the club had actually been there in over 60 years. So the question is for Mr. Lanny Wadkins, World Golf Hall of Fame member, what was your involvement and how were you involved? Is it a thing of myth that you played a part in getting that 1-iron back to Mr. Hogan?
No, it's not. I was on the Hogan staff at the time playing Hogan equipment. I had played a lot of golf with Ben. We had started playing, money games, and we got along really, really well. We kind of hit it off on a good plane. So we played a lot at Shady Oaks in Fort Worth, had a set game, played all the time. Anyway, a friend of mine, former basketball player and coach at Wake Forest, found the 1-iron according to what I heard anyway, in a barrel in a pawn shop in Raleigh. He called me. He thought it was Ben's 1-iron, and he kind of a club nut, a guy named Jackie Murdoch, former player and coach at Wake. Anyway, I said, well, Jackie, send it to me, and if it is, I will take it over and give it to Ben. As soon as I received it, I knew it was his because it still had his grip on it, which was the grip that he used. I had seen his grips on his clubs. They were very, very distinctive. He had a cord put under the grip at a certain angle so that his grip would fit right where he wanted it to every time. It had that grip on it. I knew the set. The rest of the set was in the lobby of the Hogan Company. So I knew that club matched it. I took it over to him, walked in his office, said, Ben, I think I've got something of yours. He picked it up and said, well, I haven't seen this in a long, long time. And he had got a big old grin on his face, and he really appreciated it. And, anyway, that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah, and that 1-iron now is in the USGA Museum. It's probably one of the most famous artifacts in the history of the game. It's amazing, Lanny, when you think about, when one takes, from my perspective, historically takes a look and perspective of your career, everything you did, and I called it a time when giants roam in the game because everything you did in particular were surrounding huge, huge names like yourself. For example, the first PGA Tour win you had, you win by a stroke over Arnold Palmer, the man whose name was on the scholarship you went to school with, right?
He was not very happy about that either. He was not very happy about that because I was still supposed to be in school. That would have been my senior year at Wake Forest. So not only did I leave school a year early on in scholarship, I cost him a win. He was not happy.
Now, you just said that you and Ben Hogan got along great, that Ben Hogan really liked you. Did you have the famed money games against the likes of Raymond Floyd, who a couple of times got you in major championships, or the Lee Trevinos, or the Sam Sneads, or all these other guys that were still playing then?
I had money games with Hogan. I had our set game. Then once I got on tour, starting about 73, we had a real hard set game. It was me and Bert Yancey playing Weiskopf and Palmer, and we played them on a very regular basis. If we were all at tournaments, we'd play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in money games. Never played much with Trevino. Later on down the road, Raymond and I started playing Hale Irwin and Jack Nicklaus in majors. We played them for about 3 or 4 years. Had a great run, a lot of fun. Then Watson and I kind of took on everybody for a while. We went 5 years before we ever lost. I think we lost to, I'm trying to think who it was. We lost to maybe Azinger and Mickelson at Augusta one time when Azinger holed a 5-iron at 18. That's the first time we ever lost. But I surrounded myself with good partners. I think that was number one. You put Hale, excuse me, Watson or Raymond on your side. You've got about as good as it comes when it comes to playing for money.
Yeah, speaking of partners, my friend, your reputation as a competitor precedes you. So at the end of last year, we had a chance to speak with Mark O'Meara, and I was asking him about his memories for the Ryder Cup, right? It was a Ryder Cup year. We were heading into it, and I just wanted to get a flavor of it. Well, lo and behold, the story that he told was about Lanny Wadkins. Let's go back to that day.
As we walked up to the first tee, we played, obviously, foursome best ball, which is known as best ball. And it was going to be Lanny Wadkins and I against Seve Ballesteros and Manuel Pinheiro. And we walked up, and Lanny goes, "All right, I'm going to take care of everything today. You don't say a word to these guys. I'll handle everything." I'm like, "Okay, sure, Lanny, whatever." And so we're on the tee, and they introduced the U.S. team first. And, of course, they introduced me, and a lot of people probably don't know who Mark O'Meara is, so I got a few applause, no big deal. Then they introduced Lanny Wadkins, and they booed him. I booed him on the first tee, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is something unique for me to experience. And we both hit our drives in the fairway down there, and Seve got up, and they went crazy when they introduced Pinheiro and then Seve Ballesteros, and they walked off the tee, charging down the fairway, and then I looked over, and I'm walking with Lanny, and I can't say it on air or what exactly he said to me, but you can only imagine knowing Lanny Wadkins. He's one tough cookie. I mean, this guy's the ultimate competitor. And so we're walking down there, and he's talking to me, and I'm like, okay, sure, Lanny, whatever you say, I'll do. We get on the first hole. This is a great story, and you've heard it, Maddie. I think you have, but I'm going to tell your viewers and listeners, this story is unbelievable. Three of us hit the green. Seve hit the green, I hit the green, Lanny hit the green. Pinheiro missed the green, chipped down, is going to make bogey. I putt, I missed my birdie putt. Now it's Seve's turn to putt. Seve putts it down there to about 3 feet. So now it's Lanny's turn to putt. And so Lanny's lining up his putt, and he looks over at Seve Ballesteros, and he says, Seve, he goes, listen, your mark's in my way. You got to move it one to the left. And so Seve's kind of huffing and puffing, stands over, he moves his coin over one to the left. Now Lanny puts his ball down, and he's lining it up more. And he looks over at Seve, and he says, okay, Seve, that's not enough. You're going to have to move one more to the left. And, of course, Seve stares at him, and he's like, you got to be kidding me. So he moves it over one more and backs away. Now Lanny gets over his putt, and he hits his putt, and I'm watching it, and it's going down there, and I'm thinking, looks like he pulled it to me. It glances off the right edge of Seve Ballesteros' coin and goes in the hole. He goes to pick it up, and Seve's standing there by the side of the hole, and Seve's like, what? And he goes, yeah. Lanny goes, I played it that way. He goes, you're one down. See you on the next tee. And I'm like, oh, boy, here we go. And it only got better. I think you can look at the results. I think we either beat them 6-5 or 5-4, something like that. And that was my first experience with Lanny, how much of a competitor and how much he wanted to beat those guys.
You know, what I love about that story, Lanny, is it says so much about you. It also says a lot about Seve. And in listening to Mark recount that story, the reason why I was smiling and I saw you on our preview screen doing the same thing is because you have told me the unedited version of that story. And I would ask you, what was, and again, given our audience now, what was Seve's reaction when your ball went in the hole?
Yeah, he was not happy. Well, Seve wasn't happy anyway. And you have to understand, when you played Seve, you knew at some point in time, early in the match, he was going to try and get in your face. He was going to accuse you of something. He was going to pull gamesmanship. That's just the way he played. It's the way he was. It's the way he made up. He thought that was part of the game. I knew it. Curtis Strange knew it. A few other players that have been around him enough knew it and knew how to handle it because you had to go get right back in his face. And so essentially, Mark had it pretty close there at the end. And then when my putt, went off his coin and went in the hole, he said, you do that on purpose. You have me move my coin so you can make that putt. Now, I understand the coin is the size of a dime and the hole's a lot bigger. And I just looked at him and said, yes, Seve, I'm that blanking good. Don't forget it. And we kind of went on to the next tee, and that was it. And Mark and I were 6 up and 6 to play. I think we may have lost a couple of holes coming in, but we had them down the whole way. It was it was a very enjoyable day.
Are you a reflective person? Do you give yourself time to kind of look back when you're maybe sitting with a beverage in front of a fireplace?
Probably not very much, no. I kind of stay involved in my boys' lives these days, and what Penny and I are doing. So that's kind of where it is. But it's not a lot, not too much. I mean, I've got memorabilia around here, so I see things, and it does bring back memories and times. And more than anything else these days, I look at it and go, I don't recognize that youngster I'm looking at on the wall sometimes.
Well, I'll tell you one thing you're going to love. Take a look at these photos that we got from your college, which takes you. How about this youngster? Amazing, right? That's young Lanny Wadkins.
I don't see the picture. I'm sorry, but yeah.
Oh yeah, well we could see it. It's old black and white photos of you as a collegiate player, and it's fantastic at Wake Forest. Now, Andrew, pull up that graphic that you had, the full screen graphic, because now that we have Lanny Wadkins in this setting, I do want to ask you to look back, if I may, to reflect. When you look at this list of accomplishments, is there anything in particular that stands out to you that kind of touches your heart even more? At 21 PGA Tour wins, the 77 PGA Championship, the 79 Players, the 1970 U.S. Amateur, 8-time United States Ryder Cup team member, 95 U.S. Ryder Cup captain, and 692 PGA Tour starts. How about all of that and being a member of the World Golf Hall of Fame? What stands out?
Well, I think, and it's funny. I mean, I think if you ask any player, it's probably worth his medal, he's going to sit here and say, yeah, those are nice, but I remember the ones I lost or the ones I felt like I should have won. And I think sometimes that's more reflective than the wins. I'm proud of a lot of that I did. I'm proud of my wins at Riviera, for starters. I mean, I still have the tournament record at Riviera, 20 under par, that's been standing since 1985. That's 40 years. So I think the longevity, the fact that I won in 3 different decades, played a long time, played well at a long time. Yeah, I'm proud of that I was able to do that, because I had some injuries and some things that you hope don't happen to you while you're playing. But I persevered through a lot of different things and fought hard.
When you won your PGA Championship in 1977, you finished in front of Gene Littler. And again, there's so much about your life story, your competitive story, that is surrounded by legend and one would think myth. And I'm curious if this one too had reality to it. Did you believe that you were done and go in the clubhouse and have a couple of beers and relax a little bit and then find out you had to play?
Yeah, we didn't know what was going on. We had no idea it was going to be a sudden death playoff at Pebble that day. I was hanging around the scoring tent waiting. Actually, I stood on 18 and watched Jack Nicklaus stand over a 15-footer to tie me, and all I'm thinking is, I really don't need Jack to make this. We've got an 18-hole playoff tomorrow morning, going against Jack Nicklaus on a course he's already won 2 majors on. That's probably not going to turn out too well for old Lanny boy. So I was kind of pulling for Jack to miss that putt. He did. Littler apparently got it up and down at 17 and part 18, and I assumed we were done till the next day. And talking to my buddy Ed Sneed, he had me a beer, and I was about halfway through it, and they said, you're on the first tee. And tell you how unready they were for it. They'd already taken all the gallery ropes down. This was a madhouse for 3 holes of sudden death golf. It was totally out of control. There were thousands of people everywhere. They had no gallery ropes, didn't have enough marshals. So we'd hit our shots and essentially get run over. So it was pretty harrowing for 3 holes, but ended up being a good outcome for me.
Indeed. It sounds like you were the perfect guy built for that situation, the first sudden death at that PGA Championship and major championship secured. When you talk about kind of the ones that got away, if you will, you were runner-up in 4 other major championships. Do you look back at any of those and how does that strike you? Is it a putt that didn't drop, or is it a bad decision that you made, or something that haunts you when you think back on the ones that didn't?
Yeah, usually it's a putt or putts here and there. There are a couple that come to mind. The Masters in '91, I felt like I played well enough. I should have won, lost by 2. I lost back-to-back U.S. Opens by 2 shots. That's hard to take when you get that close to tournaments that significant. I think the thing that strikes me looking back, and I wish I could go tell this to some of today's players. You have to go ahead and put a whole lot of importance on the majors. I think that's one thing that Tiger and that Jack Nicklaus did better than the rest of us. They kind of sensed that at some point in time you were going to run out of majors. You were going to now all of a sudden not be exempt for a Masters, not a U.S. Open, whatever. You're not going to be in all these tournaments and have all the opportunities. You finish second one year, you think, oh, I got another year. All of a sudden the other years are gone, and that's what it sneaks up on you. Time goes faster than you think, and I think that's probably the thing that got me a little bit was, I wish I'd put a little bit more emphasis on being ready for some of those.
Lanny, right before the break, you said something. I wrote it down because I thought it was an interesting piece of quote where you said, ... I wish I could tell this to young players today, ... And you were talking about their preparation, being ready for the big events and being ready for major championships. I'm curious if you ever thought about the same thing when it comes to you. Was there or is there something that you wish you could have gone back and said to a young Lanny Wadkins when you were starting your career?
Oh yeah. There's some things I would have changed and done different in my setup. We didn't have, the guy that taught me how to play died the last round before the NCAA in 1970. I didn't really work with anyone until I started working with Dick Harmon in 1985. So I did it all by myself from 70 to 85. I did work with Phil Rogers on my putting in 1980, 81, I believe it was, and changed it completely because I'd really been struggling with the putter. And the biggest mistake I made was not going out and working with Phil on a more regular basis. I did my version of what he told me and taught me. It worked great. I won 5 times the next 2 years, in 82 and 83. Putted very, very well, more consistent. I made the mistake of thinking I could do it on my own, and I needed another set of eyes. I should have been out to see Phil Rogers probably 2 or 3 times a year at least. I think that would have made a difference going forward, particularly in majors, because when I look back, it was always putting that eventually cost me winning those majors.
I realized the follow-up to this is almost kind of a universal generational question, but I want to find out your perspective on it nonetheless. And that is, do you have an opportunity? Are there young players from today that actually seek out your counsel, or is this a belief of you guys don't know what it's like? It's a different tour today than it was when you played.
I don't know that that's the case. It may be in some ways. The game is still the game. There's still things that I can help. I mean, I'm familiar with today's games. Both my boys carried over 300 yards. They hit it, so far by me, and all they do is laugh at me. Which is the main reason I even play golf is to watch them laugh at me because I enjoy it. It's cool to watch your boys have that much fun, and they both love playing and love the game. They qualified for the USGA Mid-Am USGA 4-ball this year. They're going to play the USGA 4-ball as a team this year at the Philly Cricket Club. So I'm very proud of them, and the fact that they've kept golf in their life, it's a big thing. But I haven't really had the opportunity to talk to any younger players. Some early on, Zalator, some when he played on the high school team with my youngest son. But everybody's got their own team, their own mentors. I've always been a little surprised that they don't seek, me and other players out. I think the thing that surprised me this year at the Ryder Cup, for example, we had a great group of former captains, probably at Trevino and Raymond Floyd and Curtis Strange, Crenshaw, Kite, me, Pavin, Azinger, all there in the team room, and we did not have any interaction with the team whatsoever. We were not even allowed in the locker room. We weren't allowed in the team room at the hotel. Not one player. They walked in a hall right next to our room where we're sitting watching the Ryder Cup a lot at the course. Nobody ever came in and said hi to us all week. So if it had been the group of players that I grew up watching, Hogan, Sneeds, Arnold, Jack, Trevino, boy, we'd have been in there talking to them till, we would have been wearing them out. They don't have any interest in seeing us. And it's a little disappointing from that aspect, but it is what it is. Everybody has their own team, their own things, and they go forward.
If you were there as an eyewitness then, Lanny, what went wrong for the United States team at that Ryder Cup?
My whole perspective looking at it from day one is, what are you worried about the team room for? Let's worry about what's on the golf course. We never played a Ryder Cup worried about the team room, for Christ's sake. I don't get it. I mean, is it having your buddy are you so insecure you can't go play with another member of the PGA Tour and put him on your back as a partner and try and beat somebody from the other tour? I don't get that. Just starters day one worrying about the team room is the damnest thing I've ever heard of.
Is there anything that you worry about when we talk about the game of golf? We've got this new massive investment by the Strategic Sports Group in the PGA Tour. We're hearing that the PGA Tour and PIF, the owners of LIV, are still in negotiations. Is golf right now in a better place than it was, say, 12 months ago?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's all to be determined, man. I think we've all got to wait and see. There's such a big emphasis on money. We played the tour when I came out to survive and pay bills and live. I mean, these guys are looking for generational wealth. Never occurred to us we'd ever have generational wealth, and we don't. We never did. My boys aren't going to, benefit from anything other than the fact that I could, teach them golf and give them an education. But I'm not leaving them anything. If they're thinking they're going to get a big inheritance down the road, they're sadly mistaken. Their mother has figured out how to spend pretty much most of it. So, that's kind of where we are. But it's, it's just a different scenario these days.
Well, these days, this week, of course, Tiger Woods back in action at Riviera. We started our whole conversation today talking about this magical venue that you won at multiple times. How important is it, do you think, to the game of golf that a legend of the status of Tiger Woods is still around? And what are your thoughts there?
Well, I think it's great for the game. I think, everybody wants to see him play. I'm excited to see him play, see what he can do. I hope he's able to play like he wants to play. He doesn't want to go out there and embarrass himself. I know that. So I'm sure he'll be ready. It's such a great venue. A course like that with an event like that, I mean, it deserves Tiger to win it. I mean, so many of the biggest names of in golf and golf history have won at Riviera. It would be a shame to see Tiger not have that on his resume. But going to be fun for all of us to watch this week, especially on just such a great venue.
Lanny, you talked about playing golf with your boys. What is it that's keeping you so busy today? What is it that makes you get out of bed and keep going?
Well, I'm doing my work at golf. I'm only doing 12 events this year. I'm cutting back. I'm only doing 12 telecasts. I've got a lot of design work. I've got 2 projects going for Invited, doing a couple of big projects for them, some renovation stuff. I've got a great design partner in Kurt Bowman who spent a long time working with Jack Nicklaus. And, we're staying busy, and we like it. It's enough to keep me in the game, keep me occupied. I enjoy that aspect of it. I've done different things since my playing days, from broadcasting to design work, and it's kept me near the game and in the game, and keeps me busy. I don't think I'd be very good sitting home. If you think about it, I've been on the road 25, 30 weeks a year since I've been, 21 years old, and it'd be hard to shut that down.
And how are you feeling before we say goodbye this morning? How's your neck? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm feeling fine. Feeling pretty good. I think as anybody my age, I'd like to have more energy, but I feel good. I mean, I've had my share of surgeries. I've had 6 back surgeries, and I'm triple fused in my low back, so I can commiserate with Tiger, know what it's like. I'm going to go to Naples, Florida this weekend and play golf with some buddies of mine for about 5-6 days and get away. I do have an Augusta trip planned the 1st of March with we have a group of 4 of us have been going for 20 years. One of the guys obviously is a member, so we go and play and have a blast. And I still get to do some pretty special things. I got a great buddy of mine, Pat Cowell, who hosts me every year out at Cypress Point when we do the tournament out there. So I get to do that. So it's not like I get to play some pretty decent spots during the year.
Lanny, it's awesome, dude. I love that you still love the game as much as you do. The passion still burns very, very brightly indeed. Thank you so much for your time. I know we just barely touched the tip of the iceberg of Lanny Wadkins stories, and we will get into them at another time. But I appreciate your company today.
You bet, Matt. Congrats on the show, and keep it going, man.